Dean Webb, he's back again. He's like the little ever-ready bunny. Is that what it is? Rabbit? The ever-ready rabbit. He's always there, ready to go.
Keeps ticking, keeps on going, right?
Keeps on going, and you do. And you, of course, after you wrote the book, You Turned to God, Wrong Ways Made Right. You have really been promoting your book as much as you can, but a lot of people have picked it up because they don't really honestly know the people who have turned up there at Faith Farm and what good things have happened for them.
Right. I always, now of course you've been wonderful. You've come to graduations, but I'm always inviting people to come to graduations to see the graduation speeches firsthand, because they're the students, the graduates tell how their life has been changed, a lot of their past and current. But I can't get everybody to do that. So I decided to record those speeches, put it in a book, and bring the graduation to the people. And that's what the book's U-Turn's about.
Yeah, and I think you have 50. It was hard to just choose the 50, wasn't it?
Yeah, when I came here 7 years ago, we started recording the speeches, the graduation speeches, and we had a couple thousand that we transcribed to writing so I could read them. And I spent every Saturday for a couple of years just going. That was what I did. I'd say, well, this is a maybe. This one's a good one, sorting the stacks. And then I took all the ones that were in the good ones and picked the best of that and came up with about 50.
But I do think that maybe this is part one. Maybe you need to keep doing this. What do you think? Do you think
Well,
this is
let me
enough?
just tell you what happened last week. I have a lady who's in class 4, which means she's a little over halfway through the program. She's from Orlando, been an addict for over 20 years. She's in her 40s. And my daughter consults with her father, who has a company up in Cincinnati, and they handle a lot of industrial waste. For example, they dispose of all the contaminants and stuff at CDC in Atlanta,
that's
the Communicable
big.
Disease Center. So they have some big time contracts. But anyway, my daughter was consulting with their company, and one day she said, "Ken, you look really down." He says, I'll tell you, he said, I just can't get my daughter out of my mind. My daughter's got 2 kids. She's 40. She's been addicted for 20 years, and we get calls in the middle of the night about. So she said, well, you need to call my dad. She needs to go to his program at Faith Farm. So he checked into the website, and so he called his daughter, and he said, I'm going to fly down Orlando. I'm going to rent a car, and I'm going to drive you to Faith Farm and check in if you'll agree to do that. And so his ex-wife, previous wife, who was the girl's mother, kept the 3-year-old boy for her while she would come to Faith Farm. And she came in a mess, really. But she's the most wonderful.
Addicted what? To alcohol?
Drugs.
Drugs.
Well,
but you had to have her clean first.
Yeah. She had to detox first. Came in the program. Her dad drove. I'll never forget when he drove her up and in front of the women's home there at Boynton Beach. And she looked the part. I mean, bless her heart. But I mean, I wouldn't recognize her now. She has the dad. He came down for her 8-hour pass after 60 days. Starting every 30 days, you get an 8-hour pass. Well, he comes all the way from Ohio to spend 8 hours with her. And they take him out and they go to lunch. He might buy her clothes or whatever. He just spends time with her. And
he must be so happy she's here.
Yeah, he just and he said last time he was here, he just sat there and his eyes teared up, and he says, for the first time, I see life in my daughter's eyes. He said I've never seen life behind those eyes. They've always been so dead. So
Wow.
this time he was just really elated. So he had read the book, and he said, I told my daughter to be honest with what she's gone through. She needs to be really honest with her graduation speech to show the life change. And he said, can I give you a suggestion? I made some comment like, well, I bet it's easier on you. And he says, oh my God, you have no idea. Get called in the middle of the night. Your daughter's found in the ditch, or she's been raped, or she's been in jail. And he said, it's just, you just have no peace. He said, so I've got an idea for you. He said, I'm sure you're going to do another book. I said, oh my gosh, since we finished this one, we've gotten some of the greatest testimonies, some of the greatest speeches. So the next one's gonna be called More U-Turns, and so he said, well, I got a suggestion for you. He said, I noticed you used only the first name of the people. He said, so in my daughter's name would be Candy, and then indent over and have a section called Family. He says, and get the family to write. He said to write what we go through when we have an addict.
That is brilliant.
And I said, God. I said,
boy,
Ken,
is that brilliant.
That's if the book would, if I could sell books, that would be $1 million idea. We give them mostly give them away, but anyway, he said people don't need to understand what he said. Do you know how much peace we've had in the last 4 months, knowing that she's safe at Faith Farm and working to change her life around? Look at me, I'm tearing up. I can't talk about my people without crying.
But I can understand this.
But he said, our life has been so peaceful. He said, we sleep through the night. He said, I don't worry about her. He said, I always wondered where she was and what she was doing. He said, I don't worry about her anymore. He said, I have such peace. And he said, now I don't want to write my story until she graduates. I want to go all the way through. He says, because I'm sure it's just going to get better. He said, but I would like to be one that if you take that idea, I want to be one that writes from our family's viewpoint. And I said, Ken.
You will be the reason we're doing it. We'll dedicate that to you, right?
I said, Ken, that is the most amazing thing in the world, because very few people know, including the addicts themselves, they have no idea the pain they're putting their family through. I mean, they steal from them to get drug money. They stay out all night, don't even think about calling them, and then they find out. Then they get a call and they're in jail and they have to be bailed out, and then just go to court. And it's just a nightmare for the families of people who've addicted. And to be able to tell the family side of the story. I hate to give this away early because I don't know how I'm going to do that, because he's a CEO of a company. He's going to be articulate and he's going to be concise and tell a good story. Now, when I get enough good stories, I'm going to have to chase down these families and see if I can get them, because I'm not sure we help the students to use hopefully good grammar when they write their speeches. But I don't know how I'm going to do that with the families. I haven't figured out how to do that because I just got the idea last week from him. But I just think that's brilliant.
It is the best idea. And I wanted to ask you about that. Do they have to be the family of someone who's in the book? Could they just be other families talking about?
We could.
Because maybe that way you could just find the articulate families, and if they match up, fine, but if they don't, it doesn't much matter. Isn't the story pretty much the same?
Yeah, everybody just goes through so much trauma with somebody. Yeah, I mean, and they need to know that sometimes, the toughest thing for somebody with an addicted, either drugs or alcohol, addicted son or daughter, is the tough love thing. They love them, and they'll, when they ask for money, they'll give them. They're reluctant. They don't want to do it. And then they think they've stolen from them and find out they really have. And then they say, well, don't come back. And then their heart bleeds and they go, oh, okay, you're in trouble. Come back. And they go back and forth. But the families finally reach a point, I think, where they just have to say, tough love means I've just got to say no.
But wait a minute. You said it's the families with the kids, but aren't there always the older adults too who do this?
Oh yeah. I mean,
the mothers and fathers.
Oh yeah. Well, we have wives whose husbands are alcoholics, and they are enablers, and they don't know it. I mean, they don't understand it. They think they're trying to love them and help them and be unconditional love and all that stuff, which is true, but they don't understand that till somebody hits bottom, and that's different for everybody. That's a different spot for everybody. Until they really hit bottom and have the motivation to change, they're not going to change. I don't care where they are, And so at some point you have to take your hands off and say, okay, God, I trust you to save them, to get them out of their mess,
Well, let me tell everybody, this charming, articulate man, Dean Webb, is the executive director of Faith Farm Ministries. They are so lucky to have him. He's author of the book we're talking about, U-Turn to God, Wrong Ways Made Right, and it's a book that you can get. The way you can go and get this is you can go on their website, which is faithfarm.org, or if you want the book, you can go to createspace.com. course, then you have to put in these numbers.
Well,
but
there is a link on our website.
Okay, let's
to,
just do it
to
with
take
your
you
website.
to create
Yeah.
space. And the reason we send you there is the book lists for $14.95, and you get a $5 off, so it becomes $9.95. So you can save $5.
Okay.
Our thing is honestly, I mean, it'd be nice if we made money. We could use money. We desperately need, but that's our whole purpose of this, to expose people to everything about the causes of addiction and how lives can be truly changed at Faith Farm. And if you've got a loved one that you need, start thinking about suggesting they come here. So our whole purpose is to expose people that you can change your life.
So, Dean, wouldn't it be nice to know that someone read your book who was an addict and read it and said, oh boy, now I'm going to go there. Have you heard of that yet?
Close.
Okay. You and I never talk ahead of time, but I just know what goes on.
My wife, Cindy, has a friend. Her name's Peggy. She lives in Joliet, Chicago, just outside of Chicago, Joliet, Illinois, and she was a nun. And she opted out of the nunnery, and she became a truant officer because her heart was burdened for kids that were skipping school in her area. So she would go after them and get them back in school. She was a truant officer and did it in a very loving manner. Well, because she was Cindy's friend, I sent her a copy of the book, and she called Cindy and she says, please tell Dean, I don't want to offend him. She said, but I started reading his book, and she said, all I could think about was my friend who has a son who is an addict, and they've tried everything in the world. She says, so I just, before I finished it, I gave my book to the family to give to him in hopes that he'll read it and get hope and realize he can have hope and might consider changing. And so I wrapped up 4 more books and sent them to her. I said, I hope you get to read one of these. And she called Cindy the following week and said, don't tell Dean, but I've already given 4 books. She said, I just have so many people that have addicts, either to drug or alcohol, that are just frustrated and need help. And so I've already given all 4 away to people that I hope will read them and get the light will come on, and they'll see that they can change.
Yeah, I think that's what the word hope is not a good enough word, because hope is not, you have to do something about it. We all hope.
Yeah, you have to take action, but most of the people, by the time they get to us, they've lost hope. They've absolutely lost all hope. Yeah. They just have no hope of ever turning their life around. And it's a slow process. It's a leveling out after they crash and decide to enter our program. Then there's a kind of a stabilizing time where they're around other people that have had the same experiences they had, and they've been without hope, and they're in our church services, they're in our daily instruction about causes of addiction and what got you here and how you can change, and so you slowly start to build hope, and that things could be better for their life, and of course, we're faith-based, so there's a really strong faith-based component towards God, and because we believe that that's the thing that'll keep them clean after they leave. And it's a slow process, but once the light comes on and they get hope, it's amazing what they do. They grab it and they kick in and start being positive and then start being very proactive about their studies and all that stuff. And so it's just really neat to see that happen.
I don't think we've ever talked about this, though, but do you have, is just the whole program support groups, but you don't have support groups per se, do you?
No. And see, one of my things is to have a family life center built there at Boynton, so that, like, on the weekends, like if you're local, the let's say the wife of somebody in the program, and even if she's got kids, I've got plans on paper to have a child care center, so they can come and go through some of the courses with their husband on Saturday and Sunday that the men are going through in the program, or the women. Because what happens, it goes like this. If this were television, you could see I've got my two hands spread apart, and the upper hand is usually the wife in most cases, and the bottom is the husband. And she's going, I want to bring you up equal to me. I want you to get sober and get clean. Well, what happens is, as I raise my right hand, it goes above the left hand, and they come home. and they come home and they're head of the household. They've gotten spiritual input. They actually become godly men. And their wife, it's kind of like, well, I wanted you to get clean. I didn't want you to get God too. So what I need to do, and sometimes they're about to divorce because they're this way, and then when it switches, they still divorce because a lot of times she's on drugs, and he's worse, so she wants him in the program, and he comes back and he's totally clean, and all of a sudden they're not communicating. They're just not one again. And so what I want to do is to bring the wife, in case the husband's in the program, to slowly get them in on some of those courses so they're on the same level when he graduates.
That's great.
But that takes millions.
It does.
It's going to cost $5 million to build that facility.
And that's the only place really that you can do it, isn't it?
Yeah, and it needs to be on campus because we're a gated community. We don't let the guys off once they check themselves in, And so
does everybody know you have that on your plan?
I don't know. I've got a potential large contributor in China, but he's never come to the country, so he's still trying to close his deal. But I'm going to tell him about it when I get it.
I think that is absolutely amazing. So the small little support group is just not enough. It needs to be something where the family really gets involved. They understand.
The non-addicted, whether it's a husband or a wife of somebody in the program, they need to have some training to put them on the same level as their spouse when their spouse graduates. Otherwise, there's going to be kind of a disconnect because the training is pretty intense.
So when people are alcoholics and they go to these, AA meetings, and they have the guest meetings special for their family members, I guess I forget what they call that. Those are the ones who have to be there to understand and to
You're right.
Same kind of thing in a way, isn't it? Just to make them understand what's going on.
Plus, part of that is they have to understand that they're enablers. And to be an enabler, I'm saying that it's not an ugly word. It's a facilitating word. In other words, they're facilitating, trying to help people cope with their situation, but in facilitating that, they are enabling them to continue in the addiction. And at some point, they have to take their hands off and just say, as somebody once said, let go and let God. At some point, you have to have the faith that something's going to happen to change that person. But they still have to have the education along with it. And so my heart's cry is that somehow, I told this guy in China, I says, I don't have any problems with Faith Farm that 50 million wouldn't cure. I can build out that campus. It'll be a model for the world to see in recovery.
You are it's amazing how determined, and every day goes by and you just think of new things. You're so dedicated. I love having you on our show and for people to know about you. Let me just read a little bit about this because you'll see why we're so fortunate to have Dean Webb as the head of Faith Farm. As executive director of Faith Farm Ministries, Dean Webb brings diverse business experience to the ministry. Prior to joining Faith Farm Ministries in June of 2007, Mr. Webb's experience included being a Merrill Lynch stockbroker as well as a researcher on Wall Street in the Stock Watch program with the responsibility of spotting irregular trading patterns. Subsequently, Mr. Webb was president of his own securities firm, his own commercial property syndication firm, and served on several nonprofit boards. He was a board member and acting president of Larry Burkett's nonprofit Christian Financial Concepts, growing revenues 50% in just 4 years prior to its merger with Crown Ministries. He's a graduate of Oklahoma State University, a U.S. Naval War College, and U.S. Navy Communications School. He's a Vietnam veteran and was a Navy commander who held top-secret security clearance to serve 3 admiral staffs during the Vietnam War. Dean now uses his experience and leadership skills to convert his passion for giving hope to the hopeless by facilitating changing hopeless lives into productive spiritual children of God. So you see, when you listen to Dean Webb, this is not casual. I mean, Dean has been in the top financial world. He was very suited to this because I know before you arrived there, it was a very nice place. It had been going on for 50-some-odd years or more.
Yeah, next month will be our 63 years, the 63rd anniversary.
But it really took your entrepreneurial spirit to be able to make it rise above all the other typical, very nice addiction organizations.
Yeah, we've made a lot of changes. We have we've instituted in the last 12 months. We've instituted what we call CWT, Comprehensive Work Training. There are 13 different things that people go through for training. They could be on the lawn crew, in which case they get landscaping training while they're doing their work, and they have to go through a course, both written course and hands-on course. Then they sit and have to test for that to get a certificate. Same thing in food service. We serve 500,000 meals a year, so the guys that work in the kitchen go through the food service. We have thrift stores, and we have both as-is and new furniture, so we've had people leave our furniture with our thing and go get jobs with Ashley Furniture, selling furniture. So we even had a guy who was in the trucking and dock segment who wanted to get in on a trucking company, so he took his little binder and his CWT binder with him to his job, and he says, okay, this is what I've been trained on. Here's all the modules that they trained me on. Here's all the hands-on work I had to do. Then here's my written exam that I passed with an A. And he got hired. He says, well, you're way ahead of the curve of most guys we bring into the program. So guys have actually taken their CWT thing and shown it to somebody to get jobs. Then the other thing we've done is we've teamed up with South Florida Bible College and Theological Seminary here in Boca, and they have given us over $2 million worth of tuition credits for our students, and we had to modify some of our 9 months worth of courses, and we had to send our instructors through training, because we have instructors, some of them are high school graduates. They just never had an opportunity to go to college, and yet they're adjunct college professors. They're teaching college-level courses. So we had to do some intense training with these guys. We had to drop a few chapters, add a few. We had to modify some of our courses to get to, so we have three credit courses. They can get up to 9 credits. They sit for 3 different exams. So now they can leave. Even somebody can come in without a high school diploma, and he can, while he's going through the 9-month thing, he can track and get his GED while he's sitting through the college courses. And then when he gets his GED, gets his high school diploma, then he can sit for the college exam, and if he passes, he can get up to 9 college hours to start. And somebody says, well, I'm not going to go to, it's a Bible college, and I know they're accredited, and these are accredited courses, but I don't ever know, how could I ever use these if I go on to college? I says, well, I went to Oklahoma State, and I think we had like 18 hours of electives. So you already got 9 hours of your electives, several $1,000 worth of tuition already paid, and you've already passed that. You just use those for electives.
Now, do you get to actually talk to everyone just like you're talking to me now? Do they come to you? Have special counseling with these people?
No, I got 445 beds. I can't get to every one of them. What I do is I will speak to the incoming class like I did yesterday down at Fort Lauderdale, Class 1, and I speak to them for just an hour, and encourage them to stick it through to graduation, because a lot of guys, I tell them about 2 medical things that occur. One is the medical term called the pink cloud. The pink cloud is what they call what happens to your mind and body when you've been addicted to either drugs or alcohol, and you've been off of those addictions for 6 to 10 weeks, and been on a regimen where you've go to bed at the same time every night, you wake up get 3 meals a day, you've done physical work during the day, you've had mental stimulation in class work and spiritual input. If you have that well-rounded, after 6 to 10 weeks, maybe 12 weeks, your mind and body starts telling you, wait a minute, I feel better than I felt in my whole life. Why the heck would I stay around this place for 8 or 10 or 9 months, And I tell the guys, I said, the sad thing is what your mind's telling you is true. You probably do feel better than you felt in months or even years maybe. But that's when a lot of guys walk out, and I try and warn them, because they do. They feel great. They've never been on a regimen. If you ask average guy, when's the last time that you ate consistently? No, I never have. You haven't had 3 meals a day? Not till I came in here, And so what their minds and bodies are telling them is true. They feel better than they've felt in years. But the sad thing is what happens after 6 months, and I've seen the x-rays from the skull, from above a skull. What happens after 6 months, the nerve synapses between your two lobes that have been destroyed start growing back together, and you're connecting your left and your right brain lobes at that same time the drug dopamine quits firing. Well, that's the thing. I got to have a drink, got to have a fix. So when that happens, that's when our guys go into a half a day of classes. That's when they really get the strong input. We pull them out of the work project, we alter their schedule, and they have the first half of the day, they're in classes the whole half day. That's when they get the strongest input in terms of both faith-based and their spiritual stuff. We deal with emotional issues. A lot of them have been abandoned by fathers and stuff like that. There's a lot of deep emotional forgiveness that has to take place for their healing. And that occurs in Class 5, which is the 6-month level. And that's when their brains are most receptive to deal with all that. So I tell them that, yesterday I told Class 1 that. I said, the reason I talk about graduation is not because, wow, graduation, that's the big deal. The world's at my feet. No, I'm trying to get you past Class 5. That 6-month level where you get your deepest life change in our program. So if you're set and committed to graduate, then at least I'm going to drag you through Class 5, through the 6-month
Dean,
level.
who designed all these programs? How did you find out all this information?
Oh, I go to seminars, and Palm Beach County has a lot of great drug and alcohol scientists and people that do stuff. And I've gone to there's a group in Palm Beach called The Road Less Traveled, and a bunch of doctors and stuff, and they do all this research, and they'll have several seminars a year that I always go to because I always learn new stuff. I'm not a physician or a medical guy, so I always learn new stuff from these guys, and but it's directly applicable to drug and alcohol recovery.
I want to make sure people know how to get in touch with you, and that's going to faithfarm.org, faithfarm.org. Go there, see if there's anything there for you, and we also ask that everybody, if you have things to donate to Faith Farm, whether it's money or whether it's items or whatever it is that you think will help an organization. Sometimes your organization wants to sponsor a particular organization. Make sure you have Faith Farm high on your list because it's so worthy. It's so the right thing to do. We just we love it so much. And Dean, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you for having me on, Anita. I appreciate it.